I'm far from Kedai to speak, to be must be a towering figure like the one that Kalal Yisrael has lost a few days ago. I just want to say that from the start. Whatever I will say, these are small thoughts, but I'm far, far from Kedai to be speaking. Especially the Gemara tells us in Masechet Shabbat that Rav said to Rav Shmuel Bar Shelat that Achem behespeda. Rav said to Rav Shmuel Bar Shelat that he should try to warm up the crowd when he eulogizes him. Dehatam ka'imna, because I will be there. And we learn from there that when we are maspid, Adam Gadol, he is present. And I shudder at the thought that the holy neshama of Morenu v'Rabenu is present. It is impossible to capture the greatness of this towering figure. I think I can say without hesitation that we haven't had a person of this stature for decades and decades. Maybe 100 years, I don't know. When the Chazon Ish was niftar, Brisker Rav, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, said that the death of the Chazon Ish is much more than just the passing of a Gadol. The world has changed, he said. We had a world with the Chazon Ish, and we now have a world without the Chazon Ish. And I say with humility that we too can say that we've lived through a transformation of the world we live in. We had a world with Chacham Ovadia, and now we have a world without Chacham Ovadia. It's not the same world. When Rav Yaakov Galinsky was maspid, his famous Hesped for the Stipler, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, 1985, he said that when the Chafetz Chaim was niftar, and Rav Elchanan was maspid the Chafetz Chaim, and he spoke and spoke and spoke about the greatness of the Chafetz Chaim. And then he said that if Moshe Rabbeinu had passed away in our generation, in his generation, Rav Elchanan said, it would be impossible to begin to be maspid Moshe Rabbeinu. Maybe it would take days and months to touch upon the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. And yet, the Torah encapsulates the life of Moshe Rabbeinu by saying, Vayamot Sham Moshe Eved Hashem, that Moshe Eved Hashem passed away. This is how we encapsulate the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. The Midrash says, said Rav Yaakov, Midrash Tanchuma in Parashat Lech Lecha says that a great businessman once went on a very important business trip, and he had to bring with him almost all of his assets. And while away, he became very ill. He had his assistant with him, and he feared he was going to die. And then he feared that if he died, that his assistant would take everything that he brought, and he would not be able to trust him to return his assets to his family. So he didn't know what to do, the Midrash says. On the one hand, if he tells the assistant to go back to the family and return everything to them, he wouldn't do it. He would just keep everything. On the other hand, this was the only individual here that he can trust. So he told him the following. He said that if I die, you get to keep everything. I just want you to do me a little favor. Go to my son and tell him that I gave everything to you, but that he gets to keep one thing. And so he passed away, and the assistant was very happy that he finally inherited all of his wealth. And after the Shiva was over, he told the son what the father had said, that he got to keep everything, and that his son was entitled to one thing. And the son was so upset to hear that, he couldn't believe it. So he went to his rabbi, and his rabbi said, your father was a genius. And he understood right away what his difficulty was, and he said that the one thing that your father wants you to declare that is still yours is this servant. And the Gemara tells us, Mashekana Ebed Kana Rabo, Mimela, everything that belongs to him belongs to you. And this, says the Midrash, is the meaning of Vayamot Sham Moshe Ebed Hashem, Mashekana Ebed Kana Rabo. The greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu was that he was mamash, everything that he was for the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chacham Ovadia was Vayamot Sham Ebed Hashem, a servant of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. His love of the Torah, his hatmada atzuma, his diligence with which he studied the Torah from when he was a young man up until his last conscious moment is immeasurable. It's unimaginable. The love that he had for the Torah, the hatmada, the constant diligence in the study of the Torah, he didn't waste a moment of his life. This was the love of his life. His great love was the Torah, and there's no doubt that the Torah's great love was Chacham Ovadia. They had a mutual love. It is well known, the stories of Chacham Ovadia. I was just leafing through the many, many things that are being written about him, and I heard something extraordinary. But I have to say, and this is a very difficult point to touch upon, that sadly, it is difficult to capture the greatness of Chacham Ovadia because a lot of us, maybe not here, but outside of this Bet Midrash, only know what's written by ignorant newspapers. They fail to realize who Chacham Ovadia really was. And they fail to understand that he only really got into politics because he was forced to. He had no choice. When he was chief rabbi of Tel Aviv, there's a psak that's printed from Rav Elyashiv, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, who wrote that it's a mitzvah for him to become the Rav Harashi. And it is known that Rav Shach, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, asked Chacham Ovadia to start his political party. He said that you needed something that is Torah, true, by Sephardim, for Sephardim. And this is the only reason he got into that life. It is well known, the stories of Chacham Ovadia's diligence. I just want to share a couple of points. His Hatamadan Torah, that this story that they say that he climbed on the ladder and he remained there throughout the night, it's a true story. It's a 100% true story. At least once, he had over 100,000 Sefarim in his home, one of the biggest libraries in the world probably. And one of his Shamashim once left him at 2 a.m. in his house, and he climbed a few steps to get to a Sefer, and he came back in the morning to pick him up to go to Shahrit, and he was still there. Same place, he hadn't moved. And he was completely disoriented. He failed to know what time it was. It is well known that people used to come and visit and could remain in his room for hours and hours, and he wouldn't realize who was there. He was completely focused on his study of Torah. It is written, I heard, that he once broke his hand or his arm because he forgot that he was on the ladder and he stepped off to go and write something and he fell. And I don't know again if this is true, but I heard that Rav Elyashiv went to be Mevaker Choleh. He went to visit him. And he said that it's not just Bikur Cholim, it is really a Kavod HaTorah. That this fracture that he had is mamash the greatest tribute to the Kavod HaTorah. There is one more great love that Chacham Ovadia had. I don't have too much time, just a few minutes. And that is the love of Klal Yisrael. It is well known that Chacham Ovadia spent a lot of hours and hours and hours trying to find ways to be matir agunot. A agunah is like a almanah of a husband who's alive. And it's a very impossible situation to be in. Chacham Ovadia spent a lot of his time trying to be matir agunot, And he did so because of the love that he felt for Klal Yisrael. He was a very emotional person. And he loved Klal Yisrael who were in tzara with tears. He cried a lot when he heard about the plight of a person who was suffering. And it is no doubt because of that he spent many, many hours trying to find a way out for a person who suffered greatly. I heard also that there were 3 families from the tragedies of 9/11 who came to Rav Elyashiv to try to figure out the problem of the agunot. And Rav Elyashiv could not be matir, but he sent to Chacham Ovadia to try to find a way, and he spent many, many days trying to figure it out. I saw something very touching, as you all may know, that not too long ago there was a terrible car accident in Eretz Yisrael that wiped out an entire family, the Atiyas family, father and a mother and 6 children, and there was one surviving little girl, Rachel Atiyas. Now she's very famous, and she was brought before Chacham Ovadia, and I actually saw this video, Chacham Ovadia crying, took her tenderly, like a father, took time out of his busy schedule that he was not mevater Torah for anything, but when it came to the feelings and the sadness and the plight of a Jew who was in tzara and suffering, he cried and he gave her a tender beracha, a beautiful beracha. He did so with tears in his eyes. These were the 2 great loves of his life, the love of Torah and the love of Klal Yisrael. I leave off humbly with the thought that if he can speak to us today, he would be mechazek what we do here in this Beit Midrash, to continue to study Torah. And he would say probably, lehazira atara liyoshna, which is what he accomplished, to bring back the crown to its original glory by bringing back kavod Torah to our heritage. He would urge us to continue to study Torah diligently, yomam valayla, to bring kavod to the Torah, to bring kavod to our heritage. And we be zocheh to see the day very soon. U'maha Hashem Elohim dim'am al kol panim. Amen.
הוא יומא דאשקפתא דרבי נפקא בת כלה ואמרה כל דהווה באשקפתא דרבי מזומן לחיי עולם הבא. במסכת כתובות. The day Rebbe was niftar, Bat Kol said, whoever's at the Levaya's Rebbe of Rebbe is mizuman lechayei olam haba. Why? Olam haba is something you have to work very hard for. Olam haba is not something that comes for free. How is it that just by being at the Levaya, you can tell me now 1 million people, close to 1 million people, who are konei olam haba, just because they went outside of their house? But Dessler says no. The Hashkafta, the Rebbe, people rose up to levels that they didn't previously imagine they could rise up to. The Ptira of the Tzaddik caused a very, very deep vacuum. And that made such a vacuum that people saw that they have to rise from this Alma de Shikra, and they became Bnei Olam Haba. There are external tears and there are internal tears. There are external tears, Rav Dessler calls it cries of women that are just crying. And there are other tears of pain that we lost at Tzaddik, but we lost the opportunity to learn from the Tzaddik. We lost the opportunity that we are in a situation that we had an opportunity to learn, we could have learned, and we don't have that opportunity anymore. Shkafta de Rebbe. Like Rabbi Oziel said, we're not coming to be maspid over here, a regular Hesped. We're coming to be maspid an era. We're coming to be maspid the tkufa of the Yabia Omer, the generation of the Yabia Omer that was. I think it's Rav Asher Weiss who said in Moscow yesterday that just like they're going to mention the tkufa of the Rambam, in many years to come they're going to mention the generation of the Yabia Omer that we were zocheh to be part of. How do you explain to someone what it was to grow up under the shadow of Rav Ovadia? All of us. All of us. We all knew that we had our ambassador. It was an identity. Rav Ovadia represented for us Keren HaTorah. He was Merim Keren HaTorah. How could it be that we approach one thing in halacha without turning to Rav Ovadia, being done? What did he say? What does Rav Ovadia have to say on this? Where would we would have been lost. Rav Ovadia gave us an identity. He gathered the Sfaradim under one banner and gave them pride. And I want to discuss tonight. It's interesting. We could speak about Rav Ovadia in so many different areas. We could speak about Rav Ovadia and how he was Ish Klal. Everyone loved him. I said yesterday a story that somebody came to move in Yerushalayim a couple of weeks ago. He went to an apartment building, and in that apartment building, it was vacant. So he took upon himself, he got the dira, the apartment that was vacant in Yerushalayim, but little did he know that in an adjoining wall there was a discotheque. There was a discotheque in Yerushalayim, in Eretz Yisrael. And here he is on Friday night, Shabbat, he comes home from Bet Knesset, he starts hearing the music blasting. Music blasting. He didn't know. Like, imagine, a Friday night. All of a sudden, in the middle of the music, they stop. Rabotai, let's pray the Rifwat Maran Rav Ovadia Yosef. It's a Friday night. People are in a discotheque. They have shaychut to Rav Ovadia Yosef. Maran Rav Ovadia had a special place in every person's heart. And that's a subject on its own. But I want to discuss tonight a total different aspect. How did Rav Ovadia become who he became? There was a great debate by his close Talmidim. Did Maran Rav Ovadia have a photographic memory or not? What is a photographic memory? He would see whatever he remembered, whatever he saw, he remembered. People very close to him told me that he didn't remember phone numbers for the life of him. He didn't remember the play button in his house. I used to see the play button in his house. They had to say, this is what you press for the tape, and this is what you press for the stop. He had no idea. He had no idea. Rav Baruch ben Chaim and Rav ben Tziyanu Bas Shaul and Rav Ovadia Yosef, when they were Bachurim in Yeshivat Porat Yosef, they would walk from the old city to their house and back. They would chazer dapim of Gemara. Rav Ovadia would keep on going over the same Gemara. Later on in his years, he met a Bachur, and the Bachur told him, he says, what are you learning? He said, I'm learning Baba Kama. And he took out a Gemara and he said, what's in Daf Ayin Zayin? He says, I don't remember. So the boy opened up Ayin Zayin, and he sees that it's only 1.5 line of Gemara, and it's a long Tosfot. It's a long Tosfot. It's a long Tosfot. Could be it was Kuf Zayin. It was a long Tosfot. There's a little bit of Gemara, long Tosfot. Rav Ovadia said, where's the Tosfot? The Bachur started Parashat Ktivkan. He started reading over it. He started reading word for word the whole Tosfot. The whole Tosfot he rattled off. So the Bachur looks at him. He says, what do you think? You wouldn't have forgotten it also if you didn't learn it 200 times. 200 times Ovadia learned. So, whether it's photographic or not, it's not so sure. One thing is that he kept on going over his Sfarim over and over and over again. It's no pele that he remembered everything. For many years, I was zocheh to live in the building 2 doors down from Rav Ovadia, which means a lot of times on Shabbat morning, I would pray in his house. He didn't have the Bet Knesset downstairs, and I would be able to pray in the minyan. He had a small minyan. I spend my time, unfortunately, at Chatayani Maskir Hayom, that a lot of times during Tefillah, I would take out his Svarim and I would look through, see his notes on the side. Every single Sefer had countless amounts of bookmarks on it. Every single Sefer, Rabbi Oziel said 100,000 Svarim, every single Sefer had countless amount of bookmarks. He was constantly referring to them. They were the love of his life. He loved them. And every Sefer, he didn't only know it was written in the Sefer, he knew the Haggaot, he knew the back, he knew who it was written from. There was Rav Elio Bar Shalom who wrote Sefer Mishpat HaKetubah. He's a Talmid Chacham, wrote 8 volumes on Mishpat HaKetubah. He had a question about the Shivua in the Ketubah. So he went to Rav Ovadia, he started speaking to Rav Ovadia about it. Rav Ovadia said, look at the Sefer TV Israel, over there it talks about the Shivua. TV Israel, you know where TV Israel, looked around, all the Sifriot, he couldn't find it. All the databases, he couldn't find it. He like Hebrew University, he found that they had the Sefer TV Israel. He looks, he says, this is Trefoj. He says, it's a Sefer on Trefoj. He goes back to Rav Ovadia, he says, right, it's a Sefer on Trefoj. He says, look in the back. In the back, in the Miluim, in like the Mechaber said, because he didn't want to leave one page empty, so he wrote extra stuff. Over there, he wrote about Shivua B'Ketubah. And that's where Rav Ovadia got from. A little detail over there, Rav Ovadia knew. Every little sefer, every single little point, he was on top of. Reb Shlomo Zalman, he once met. Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Shlomo Zalman said, I'm very sad today. I'm looking for this Rashi all over, and I can't find it. Rav Ovadia says, what Rashi? He says, this and this. He says, no. It's not a Rashi. It's a Korban Netanel in this area. Korban Netanel is a commentary on the Rosh. Very, very, very fine print in the back of the Gemara. It's a forlorn commentary. It's like the Chalishut Adat of his Shlita and his memory. He didn't forget anything. I remember a personal story. This was not Lav Dafka in the learning, but he had this tremendous zikaron of just absorbing everything. It was a matana min hashamayim. My wife's grandfather was one of the Rashi Kehila in Cairo in a Bet Knesset called Agudat Ahava Ve'achva. And when Rav Ovadia Yosef was young, he was called by this community to come to Cairo to be, I think Rav Oziel sent him, Rav Ben Zion Oziel sent Rav Ovadia to be a Rav in Cairo when he was 28 years old. And Rav Ovadia stayed there. It's a whole story. He was lochem on kashrut. He had big milhamot over there. Eventually he returned back after 2 years, and that's when he took up the post in Dayanut in Tel Aviv. Either way, 60 whatever years passed, and my wife's grandfather was not feeling well. He was very sick. I used to pray there in the morning. I'd come to Rav Ovadia, I would ask him, and I asked him, I want a bracha for Yosef Abba, because I wanted him to know, that he shouldn't just give a bracha just like that. He should know it's somebody he was very close with, that he was when he was in Mitzrayim. Mashem Mimo, what's the name of his name? Yosef Abba. I thought that he didn't understand that I was talking about my wife's grandfather. So, Yosef Abba. So he said, Mashem Mimo. So I said, Rav Yosef Abba. So he gets annoyed with me. He looks at me. He thinks, Yosef ben Rachel, Mishe Berach. You remember that, 60 years ago? So they 100, could pass so much more time. And on the spot, you remember he says I was annoying him, so he had to remember himself, and he remembered the name. His Ozer Ne'eman. I have to tell you also that there were times where I came home very late on Rehova Kablan, 2, 3 in the morning. Would have a wedding of a family or something, family member, and I would come home very late. Light was always on. Light was always on. The Shamashim say that what was his schedule? He would go to sleep not before 2 or 3 in the morning. And what does that mean, sleep? He went to his cheder menucha, we call it, and he had all the new svarim of people that come out, and that's when he would read them while he's going to bed, and that's when he would write some of the psakim. He would tell his shamash, okay, leave me half of the psakim over here that I have to deal with, I don't have time to deal with during the day, leave them in the bedroom. And the next morning he says, okay, I want you to write to this one, write to this, that. That was his sleep that he had until Shabbat, the couple of hours that he had. If he bichlal slept, like Rabbi Oziel said, many times he forgot to sleep, many times he was staying up the whole night. And it was like there was no hefsek. There were times where he would go from city to city, north and south, with helicopters for draining. Everybody came back exhausted. Never, ever, ever, his Mishamshim say, never, ever, ever do they remember him going straight to go to sleep. He always went back to his Sfarim. He always went back to his Sfarim and right away started writing. There was never such a musag of him just coming home, going to bed. It was always waking up, coming back right away, and getting back to his Sfarim. So there's a question that Rav Ovadia called up one of his Talmidim. His name is Rav Gidon ben Moshe Shlita. And he wanted him to find out about dishwashers. He wanted to find out about dishwashers, how they work. And I was helping Rav Gidon ben Moshe in certain areas. Then I was helping in his Bet Torah over there, and he told me to research certain things, and he researched certain things. He brought them to Rav Ovadia. Rav Ovadia wrote a whole tshuva about dishwashers. And then Rav Ovadia needed a little bit of rest. It was a little bit of rest for like 1 minute. So Rav Gidon asks him, Rav Ovadia, if you look inside Yabia Omer, there's a tremendous amount of teshuvot that are written to Kahir in Cairo. You were there for 2 years. You had time to write everything that was in Kahir, in Cairo? He says, I don't know. I was just writing and it came out that way. It happens a lot of times that this is something that I think that we could all take to heart as well, is that if we take to heart that we can't look at the big picture. We keep on going little by little and little in our personal step, and then we can look at the big picture. We'll see how much we could accomplish. I don't know. I'll share with you something very personal, and it's something that is just a hargasha that I think that Rav Ovadia gave in all of the Bnei Yeshiva, a hargasha that they can make it, and they could all be a Rav Ovadia, and they could always be. I always felt that if I tried hard enough, if I had enough hatmada like he did, I could also be like Rav Ovadia. And that gave me I didn't feel this way specifically by a lot of Gedolim. I felt that, I wasn't able to connect or relate as much. But with Rav Ovadia, for some reason, it was a connection that he felt, I could do that also. We have to apply ourselves. And every one of us, we could take to heart the lessons that he learned, the amount of Torah, the amount of Hatmadah. So this was the Rav Ovadia who came from Kahir, and he advanced to Dayanut of Petach Tikva, and from there to Chief Rabbi in Tel Aviv, and from there to Chief Rabbi of Eretz Yisrael, of Israel, and from there he advanced. You think that he could have been retired, but that's specifically when he really started. He was pained at the million of children, as he always used to say, that don't know Shema Yisrael, and he embarked on his new journey of Le'achzir Atara Liyoshna. And I want to speak a little bit about this Le'achzir Atara Liyoshna. It's no secret that it pained Rav Ovadia Yosef very, very much that the Sfaradim were not treated with the proper respect. In general, it was a hashpa'ah from the Chilonim that trickled down to the Charedim. I can tell you, it's no secret. We had last week over here, Rav Sinai Halberstam was here. He's a big student of Rav Wozner, and he's a Rav in Bnei Brak, and he was around there at Yisrael for many years, and he told me, for many, many years, everyone will look at the Sfaradim. You would need a helper at home. You would need some dishwashing, or you would need whatever it is. So that's the Sfaradim. That's what they weren't able to hold their heads high at all, and it pained Rav Ovadia very much. One thing that pained him a lot was especially, and this is what I want to concentrate on tonight, is the Tchum HaTorah. On the Torah that our Gdolei Olam wrote and published, and nobody knew their names. Nobody knew their names. Rav Ovadia says that he was sitting in a beddin in the city of Petach Tikva. It was in the shul, the city of Petach Tikva, and there was another dayan over there, and this dayan saw Rav Ovadia come in, and he said, okay, all right, fine. So all right, what does he have to say already? And there was a case of a get, and Ovadia right away said, the get pashut writes this and this. Get pashut is one of the cornerstone sfarim on Hilchot Gitin. It was written by the Maram ben Habib. So this, I don't know, who brings it down? What, the get pashut? Ovadia got a little bit annoyed. He said, Rabbi Kiveger brings it down in this and this and this place. Oh, Rabbi Kiveger brings it down. It bothered him that people didn't know the hashivut and the gadlut of a lot of Poskei Sfarad. And this Rav Halberstam that was here told me that we ourselves, in the Batei Din, when people would come, what's the halacha for Sfaradi? I don't know. Who cares? What is it? This is what he told me. This is what he told me last week. Whatever it is. We know who the Birkei Yosef? Yeah, Mishnah Berurah times brings something. Bet Resh Chaf Yud. Who's the Birkei Yosef? Marmar Mordechai, I don't know. Or is he from Poland? I don't know. Rav Ovadia brought all the Sfarim, all of the Sifrei Gdolei Sfarad. He brought them to the Am HaTorah. And if it wasn't, I have a large degree of the Acharonim of Gdolei Sfarad that are known nowadays to the general Olam HaTorah is B'schut Maran Rav Ovadia Yosef. Is B'schut Maran Rav Ovadia Yosef. That's something that he always wanted, that a Bachur Sfarad should be proud of the Torah, of his Yerusha, and he shouldn't feel limited. His Shamish tells a beautiful story, that there was one Bachur who came, and this Bachur wrote a letter to him. He wrote a letter to Rav Ovadia. He gave a letter to Rav Ovadia. What was written in the letter? That he has heart issues. He has heart trouble. And he lives in Petach Tikva. And over there, there's one yeshiva that's not so good. It's mediocre. And he feels if he goes there, he's going to connect to the wrong type of Bachurim, and he's not really going to be mitale. Then there's another yeshiva in Petach Tikva. It's called Or Yisrael. Yisrael is a very prominent yeshiva, prominent Ashkenazi yeshiva. And this boy said, and wrote in the letter, V'ani lo cholem, I don't dream that I could get into this yeshiva, but it's not even in my dreams. It's not even in my dreams. So Rav Ovadia received tens of letters, and some of them he'd be able to deal with, some of them he would give to his Oziel. This letter particularly, he put in his pocket. Next morning, Shacharit, Eli Yishai comes. He's for Shacharit. Usually, he starts a harav. The Iran wants to attack this. He says, takes out the letter. He says, read this. Yishai reads. He says, okay, what do you want from me? Says, you see that yeshiva that he dreams that he wants to get into? I want him to go to that yeshiva. The yeshiva says, I don't know. I don't know the people in that yeshiva. He says, what do you mean you don't know? You're a minister. Everybody knows who you are. Go there and do whatever you have to do to get him to the yeshiva. And I don't want to see your face until he's in the yeshiva. Don't come back to me again until he's back in yeshiva. He has all this political cheshbonot and everything. What mattered to Rav Ovadia is that this boy has a dream and that he doesn't fathom that because of his status or whatever, he can't go into a yeshiva. But he says, I want him to go there. And Baruch Hashem, that boy was able to go. The reason why I picked this story is that this Rav Ovadia dreamt, and it was realized by him that all Bachurei Yeshiva could dream to go to yeshiva. They could pick their head high up and they could go to yeshiva. When I was an avrech in Yerushalayim, there was a certain yeshiva that it was known that they were they were a Sfaradi yeshiva, but they weren't at all in the mahalach of Rav Ovadia Yosef. They would encourage even their bachurim, listen, we are, the Sfarim is very nice, Talmid Chacham and everything, but we have our mahalach. I remember because I have family who was in that yeshiva. I actually have my brother-in-law is a rebbe in that yeshiva, and they're very much their shita. This week, they said tremendous hespedim on Maran Rav Ovadia Yosef. It seems to be that, and this is a subtle and delicate point, and I feel it has to be said, that many people Everyone knew Rav Ovadia. Some argued, some were his staunch and diehard Hasidim. But what was discovered this week is that whether you were his diehard Hasidim, or whether you had questions on his Piskei Halacha, he was a Rav Ovadia. He was a Rav Ovadia. And now he's gone. Now it's a world without Rav Ovadia Yosef. How could I explain it? It was the underlying light in every Ben Yeshiva's Limudat Torah. Every Ben Yeshiva have the psakim of Rav Ovadia that they learned and they cherished. Every Dayan would turn to Yabia Omer for direction. Every Moreh Hora'ah will use, if it's not Taharat HaBayit or the Hazon Ovadia or all the Yabia Omers. Just this morning we had a shiur on Dina de Malchuta Dina, Sugyan Choshen Mishpat. We learned a beautiful tshuva of Rav Ovadia. And where did I get this tshuva from? From a study group somewhere in America, in a kehila, that this is when not during his shiva. This is the Torah of Rav Ovadia Machrezet Misofa Olam al Sofa Olam. Bifrat. This is a point that I want to mention, Berabim. Bifrat. Chachmei Morocco are greeting Ovadia besimcha atzuma. In Porat Yosef, when Rav Ovadia was 30 years old, they brought a bunch of Sfarim, 20 Sfarim from Morocco, old Sfarim that had to be bound. And these were old Sfarim, and they didn't have their page covers, and nobody really knew where they were from. They didn't have their names. And the Rav Ovadia looked at them, 17 of them right away, says, yes, I recognize right away. This is this Rav, and fill in this and this and this and this. All the pratim. He knew all the pratim right away. When I was writing Magen Avot, in specifically Yoreh De'ah, I could say honestly, most of the Marei Mekomot, of the forlorn and not known sources of our Moroccan Hachamim, came from Yabia Omer. People would ask me all the time, who knows the Sfarim of our Hachamim the best? I would tell them, yes, it's Rav Ovadia, there's no question about it. Rav Ovadia had the shlita of all, especially the Moroccan poskim. He had all the poskim in his hand. But who else knew the Moroccan poskim the way he did? Every single teshuvah written in Kerem Chemer, or in Mishpat Tzedakah v'Yaakov, or if it was written in the Mishpatim Yesharim over here, Sfarim that not many people use. Edut b'Yaakov. On the bottom in the Hiyara, in Yabia Omer, in passing, he says, "Ve'ayin sham shiddan bazeh, ve'gam nechleku bazeh, b'shufrei de Yosef." The Melech, Sar HaTorah, Haval al de'avdin ve'lo mishtakhin. I sometimes had the chutzpah to write and to be done b'dvarav, Ge'ilu, Kushyot, and my intention was to clarify the other tzad and to explain the tzad in halacha of this shita. If I ever dared step the boundaries of kavod Torah, and I was mitbateh shelo bekavod, I was publicly mechila. Piece of dust under his feet. Kelev amilak leklayim. Slachna. Yehi Zichro Baruch.